So we got brand new fork seals here. Brand newsies. Put those in. An old bike like this, I like to use this this heavier oil. It's 10 weight. You can use ATF too, automatic transmission fluid. It's about a 7 weight on these old bikes, and the automatic transmission fluid is pretty good stuff. It's got a lot of good additives in there for rejuvenating seals. When you're using this like 10 weight mow tool, just be aware that it's different. Like if it's Bell Ray, AMSOIL suspension fluid, just be aware that there's no standardization with these fork oil products. It's not like motor oil where the viscosity is regulated and it has to be a certain viscosity. Fork oil, it's kind of the Wild West. That's my understanding. It's been my experience too. You open a bottle of mow tool compared to that AMSOIL and that Bell Ray, and it's all different. It's really crappy because, you know, you pour the oil in and then you put the fork back together and you realize it's too soft now, or it's, you know, it's flowing too freely, and then too spongy on the front end. And I've had it go the other way where you put in, you know, 5 weight and it's too stiff. So yeah, I mean, but mow tool, I mean, it's pretty good, reputable company. So, you know, 10 weight. But anyway, so this is just what I got. With the old Goldwing, I'm not too fussy about what goes in there. People used to use automatic transmission fluid all the time. It's about a 7 weight. TF fluid's like an amazing kind of oil. I don't know what's in it, but you know, you get an old car and it's been like, nobody's ever changed the oil. You pull the dipstick and at 100,000 K later, it looks pretty much the same as when they put it in. I'm not saying it's the same, but you know, it's like this miracle oil sort of thing. So ATF, pretty good stuff on forks. So be aware of that when you're buying fork oil. The ATF actually has been more consistent throughout the years than anything else in terms of viscosity. So I don't know, just a little tip for whatever it's worth. But don't use multi-weight. You should use a non-detergent oil. So and a straight weight. These are all straight weight oils, and so what that does is all the crap floats to the bottom. It's because there's no filter in that system, obviously, in a fork, and so you want all the stuff to settle to the bottom. That's why you take a fork apart and the stuff's always at the bottom, because it's a non-detergent oil. So a little bit of info there for you. I use an old book here. I think it goes back. It's got all the models in it. This is made and published in Canada. I got a number of these here. All Seasons Publications. I think some guy in BC prints them. I order them once in a while. They get a little dated, and so I order them, but they got most of the models in here. But I got some really old publications here, so it goes back to the old vintage bikes. Yeah, so 1981 Honda Goldwing. The Interstate regular Goldwing has the same fork oil capacity, which is 240 cc's. That's just a rule of thumb, by the way. So you don't have to put 240 cc's in. Your forks are too spongy, you can not only up the viscosity, you know, like say if you're using a 7 weight, 7.5, then use a 10. Drain it, use a 10 and see if that works for you. And 2, it says 240 cc's, but that's not written in stone. Like, not everybody lives on the same spot in the planet, and not everybody weighs the same, and there's so many variables, right? So, you know, if it's 40 above, or you know, maybe close to 0, well, your forks are going to act much differently. So 240 cc's, you can add a bit or take a bit away. Try adding 10 cc's or 20 cc's. You're not going to hurt anything. So it's like tire pressure. It's not written in stone. It's a rule of thumb. And with that said, I mean, if your tire says 36, you shouldn't put in like 82. You know, I'm talking like a difference of 3 psi, 6 psi, because after you start riding, I mean, if you got your tires filled up to 42, you might find they're at 46 or so. If you fill up to like 36, you might find they're like 42 or 44 after a long ride, like an hour's ride. The cold tire pressures is a suggestion. So, and everybody weighs different, and the bikes are different, and you know, they sell a tire, but that tire can go on so many different bikes. If the weight of the bike is, you know, fits into the parameters as specified on the sidewall of the tire. These things, it's like filling up your engine with oil. You know, it might take 4 liters, but if you put in 4.1 liters, well, don't worry about it, because there's always 0.5 liters left in the engine anyway. You'll never get that 0.5 liters out unless you take the engine out, split the cases, and clean everything, and then you'll have a dry engine. And that's why there's 3 different oil capacities for engines. There's one like with the filter, and then with a filter change, and then one without a filter change, and then there's a different capacity for after an engine R&R. So the difference is about a liter difference between all 3 of those, thereabouts, you know, depending on the engines. Old bikes, you always had it written on the side of the engine. So forks, same thing. I mean, so this says 240, but I know it could use a little bit higher fork oil. So that's one of the tricks I'm going to do. I'm going to put in probably 250, 255, raise the oil level. I'm going to put a 1-inch slug in the forks, and so it compresses the spring a little bit, because these things have terribly soft front suspensions, and they're like a pogo stick. They're just terrible, man. So but you can spruce them up a little bit, you know, rejuvenate them a little bit, you know, clean them out, put new fork oil in them, R&R, bushing, seals, preload the spring, just 1 inch, a slug in there, heavier fork oil, of course, and use a 10 weight, and raise the fork oil a little bit. And and 2, these are air forks, so put too much air in these forks, because that's one thing that blows your seals, is people put too much air in the forks. They're actually air oil forks, so the air assisted with the suspension. So FYI, I'm just going to slap these forks back together real quick. So these things have been cleaned off. I've got them straightened. Very cool. That was mission successful. These old dampeners, which is fine. Put a spring on there. That goes down in there. Put a little cap on the end. Put a spring in there to hold it temporarily. Just like that. Just like that. That's where one of these bolts is going to go. This bolt here holds, goes in the bottom of the fork leg. Holds it on. A 6mm, I believe. Screw that on in there. Take the spring out. These have little copper washers, see, on the bottom. That's what seals them, copper washer. The problem with using silicone on these is you don't want to come out next time. And if you leave them in long enough, you end up having to drill out this this bolt and then punch it out with a hammer. So if you don't want to do that, don't put silicone on there. So what you do is you put the bushing in, and then put the little retainer on. That's going to pound it down. So you're not pounding on the threads, studs. And then it's in, the tone will change, and you'll see it's in. I use an old, I go down to the muffler shop and I just size these up, and then I file off the sharp edges. But you got to be careful that, you know, first of all, that it fits perfectly, of course, so it doesn't hit the lower leg and it doesn't hit the stanchion, of course, obviously, I think. Yeah, those guys down at the muffler shop, they got a little expander. They got little fingers that go in here, and they'll make you any size you want, actually. See, like there's another one, and they just expand it for me. I got a seal kit with all the different ones in there, because I do all kinds of forks, right? It's a never-ending thing with mechanics. You got to always be buying tools, you know. Little persuasion for the seals to go in. Then I get a little jug, and I'm going to measure off 240 cc's. Take a Sharpie, and I'm going to measure off. It was 240. So many numbers on here, and just roughly. So I'm going to go just over 250. There we go. Then put it on the same flat surface for both forks. There we go. Right up to the line. It's not imperative that you get it absolutely 100% perfect. These old forks, it won't make an iota of a difference. Might be wondering, how do you get all the springs in here? Get the cap on. Probably struggling with that. What I do is I put on a glove. I put this on the floor. I put it between my legs, and I put the glove on, and I squish it all down, and then I turn the tube. I turn the tube rather than trying to turn this, because if you try to turn this and crush all the springs down, you're going to end up stripping the threads. Spray the threads off with brake clean, blow it off with compressed air, make sure they're absolutely clean, put a lick of oil on it to aid the engagement of it, and then yeah, put on the glove, put it on, and then turn the tube and get the spring in there. That trips up a lot of people because they're so hard to get on. And as you see, unlike normal forks, with these air forks, there's not a normal cap on there, so that tends to jab up into your palm of your hand. Good times. Cut up the 1-inch slug right there, 25 millimeter. So that's gonna preload the spring a little bit. I'm just gonna throw this last one together for you. A little dampener on top of the dampener. So some things I'm using from the old forks, some things I'm not. These springs, there's a tightly wound side and a loosely wound spring. It does not matter which end goes in which. Matter of fact, you could put these just the opposite. It probably wouldn't still not matter. The tightly wound in first, then put the other side in just the same. Slide that in. Make sure it slides nice. There's no binding. Little bolt, 8 millimeter bolt, 1.0 mil thread, I believe. And then I'm going to start it, turn it in. I just put the spring in there temporarily. Take it back out. Put it in the vise. Use caliper bosses. You don't have to go nuts with it. It just has to be snug, just so it doesn't turn. And then I do the final sort of torque with my ratchet. Get some good torque on there. Try and keep everything clean. Like that. You'll hear it seats when the tone changes. And so we're gonna put the seal in. Seal's all lubed up. Massage it on to the top. I like to bring it down, wipe the excess oil off, lightly seat the seal. As I take an old seal, wipe it off, and we're going to pound on the old seal. There we go. You hear the tone changed. Again, pull it up, old seal off. These seals go right in the garbage. There we go. The retaining ring has a sharp edge and it has a round edge. Find the round edge, and the round edge goes towards the seal. And the sharp edge goes into the slot, of course. Put it to the light, visually inspect that that ring is indeed seated. The dust seal is not that important, actually. Same container, same spot, same marking, and we just fill it right to just at the line there. Do not forget to put the drain plug back in. A lot of modern forks, you don't have drain plugs, unfortunately, so makes this job a lot more difficult. You gotta take the whole forks apart, you see, and you don't have a drain plug. Kind of silly, isn't it? If you just put a drain plug on the bottom of the forks, you could just do a quick and dirty oil change. Lots of people used to just change their fork oil just like you change your engine oil, but they don't put drain plugs on them. So, you know, what do you do with that? Don't over tighten, just a little bit. See, it's got a copper sealing washer, nothing on the threads, you don't need it. Put the oil in. There we go. You got to massage the stanchion up and down until that gurgling goes away. And full strokes all the way down and then all the way up. And you hear the bubbles getting smaller and smaller. You keep doing it till you can't hear anything, till it's just always consistent sound. That means all the bubbles are out of it. Spring end in, tightly wound in first. Drop it in lightly. Don't splash the oil up. Wipe everything off one last time. Put that in, the spring, then another washer, and then we're going to put this on, and then this takes this one. These caps are different, so be mindful which side you're putting on which. Put my glove on. So there we go. So this thing's going to go in, has to go in straight. There we go. Holy shit, that's tight. Get it on there before it goes explodey. You're going to tighten these up. That's around the bike. There we go. That feels way better. And there is a set of forks. It's like brand newsies. Fantastic, fabulous. Got a whole box of parts I've taken off that Goldwing. These make good good handles, extension handles for breaker bars. So if you're going to do one of these Goldwings, just take the fairing off. It's only like 6 bolts. If you're trying to do the front end, it's so much easier, you know, to do a proper job. Access to all the bolts. It has this weight on here. They all came with this weight back in the day. It's like a 3-pound weight. Shimmy out of the front forks, because he bolted this snowplow to the front, and it had an adverse effect on the handling. So the little silver wings, the 650, 500 Goldwings, early era Goldwings, early 80s, they all had this big 3-pound sledgehammer thing bolted to the forks. Got the forks on the wrong side, of course, so that's part of being a fallible human being, I guess, right? It's all in the open, fairings off, so easy peasy. I'm going to get it running. I threw some new plugs in there last night, and the battery needs a charge, so I'm going to throw it on the charger while I'm working on it and get this thing cranked over. I drain the carburetor, is going to get some fresh fuel in there and fire it up. Just got to do this rear fender, put the new rear fender on. This got a little crumpled in the accident. Not too bad, but just going to replace it anyway. It doesn't quite match. It's the only one I could find, though. It's just getting so hard to find parts for these old bikes, and this bike's more sentimental than anything to the guy, so got the new to me mirror on there. So I need a mirror, rear fender, forks. I put in some new spark plugs, check the air filter, oil, etc. Gonna fire it up, charge the battery. Hopefully tonight. I need the space. It's taken up valuable real estate in the shop, as you can see. Didn't want to start initially, but kind of finally fluttered into life and sounds pretty good, so I think you'll be happy with it. Got some good straight forks on there. She's all together, fairings on, bolts are all in, forks are on the right way. That's pretty cool. So that's it, folks. Kind of a longer video than I thought it would be. I was just going to do a quick video on forks, but anyways, kind of dragged on, got into this old Goldwing. They're a bear to work on. They were a bear to work on when they're new. That's why a lot of shops won't take on this old stuff. This bike is older than most of the mechanics working in the shops, to be fair. What do you do with that? And then it's hard to find parts for it too, and then there's a lack of expertise with it. So, you know, and back when they were new, the money was there. So, but there's the odd guy that comes in still, and you know, they got a sentimental value to the bike, and they just want it fixed. And they're good old bikes, actually. You want to putt around in the summertime and you get this thing tuned up and keep the oil change, you'll probably outlive you. Hope you found some of the bits useful if you're working on a crusty old Goldwing yourself, and maybe you need some useful insight into what to look for. And again, those shocks, you can find those on Harley Davidson, so you know, shop around. They're non-existent for, you know, old Goldwings. I mean, they're like unicorns, right? So yeah, anyways, in the meantime, take care and keep the rubber side down. Ciao.